Chapter 27 of the Boy Scouts Down in Dixie. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by Shasta, Oakland, California. The Boy Scouts Down in Dixie by Herbert Carter. Chapter 27. Mr. Jasper, Surprised. "Don't move, you," the man called out threateningly. "I've got you covered, and I'm desperate enough to shoot if you rile me just so far. Get that?" Thad managed to preserve his level head in spite of the seriousness of the conditions. It had always been one of his strongest points that when an emergency arose, he could calmly meet it. In times past, this sterling trait had placed him head and shoulders above the other scouts, and had considerable to do with making him the assistant scoutmaster of Cranford Troop. He knew that this man was in a frame of mind to do almost anything wicked. He had always been a bad man, and now that his whole future depended on his getting safely out of the country with the plunder he had lately stolen, it was not likely he would let anything stand in his way. Thad began to use some of the shrewdness that a scout should always aim to have at his command when placed in a position of this sort. He saw something moving just a little way behind Jasper, and quickly realized that this must be the swamp guide. Alligator Smith had allowed the man to pass him by, but he was now creeping up like a panther back of him, advancing inches at a time, but with the utmost care, and meaning when the proper second came to spring upon Jasper's shoulders. So Thad knew that it was his duty to hold the attention of the man in some way or other until his confederate could cover the little space that still separated him from his intended victim. Once let Tom Smith make that plunge, and the chances were he would fix matters so that Jasper would not be left in any condition to do further damage. Above all else, Thad knew that under no consideration must he allow the man to suspect that he was only trying to hold his attention for a deep purpose, and in order to make the matter stronger, Thad determined to stagger Jasper by revealing his identity. Anything at all so that he could cause him to remain just where he was and allow the other to reach him. "Oh, I surrender all right. So please don't think of using your gun. It isn't at all necessary, you see." And as he said this, the boy held up his hands, both of which were free, for he had allowed his rifle to fall to the ground at the time he seized upon the extended hands of the girl outstretched to him. "However did you get over here? And what's that uniform mean?" demanded Jasper, who was apparently almost stunned with surprise. "Why, you see, I belong to the Boy Scouts," remarked Thad offhand, "and you must know they're always interested in boats, motorcycles, airplanes, and all such things, and it looks like a fellow would need a flying machine to cross that sink of mud around this place." "An aeroplane? You're an air pilot?" exclaimed the man, hardly knowing whether it could be true or that this boy might be deceiving him for a purpose. I'd never believe it unless you showed me your machine. What were you doing holding the hands of my daughter? There's something more about this thing than you've admitted. I'm beginning to suspect that you came here for some purpose." Only another minute Thad expected would be necessary. Alligator Smith was making good progress and must soon be in position to hurl himself upon the unsuspecting Jasper, wrestling with these staggering facts. "Well, that's right, Mr. Jasper. I did come here for a good reason," Thad went on to say composedly, hoping that he could manage to hold the attention of the other just a brief space of time longer. "You know me," gasped the man, still further amazed. "Who are you, boy? I demand that you tell me, and in a hurry, too, if you understand what's good for you." And he made a significant movement with his hand that grasped the pistol. "My name is one you've heard before, Mr. Jasper. I'm Thad Brewster." That was almost like a thunderclap to the rascal. It must have brought up before his mind's eye many things connected with his wretched past. When he had succeeded in digesting it better, no doubt he would show signs of anger. He might even think of raising his hand to do the lad injury, because when one has bitterly wronged another, he is apt to hate him in the bargain. But just then Jasper was too utterly astonished to even show rage. "You, Thad Brewster?" he cried out, his hand falling to his side from weakness, as he stared into the face of the boy who stood there and calmly confronted him. "Yes, and I have come to find my little sister, Pauline, the girl you stole away from my mother many years ago. There's no use in saying that you didn't, because I have plenty of proof. Why, anybody could tell from her looks alone that she was a Brewster. And of course you'll let her go back with me, Mr. Jasper. You must have long ago repented having been so cruel to my poor mother, who died mostly from grieving after her lost baby. You can go your way and let Pauline be with me. You will, won't you?" Of course Thad was talking in this way for the simple reason that he must say something to hold the attention of the man, because the critical moment was at hand, and he had really taken the strongest measures possible for riveting the mind of Jasper upon what he was saying. A dozen seconds more and it would all be over, so the scoutmaster was determined that he would continue to grip Jasper's mind for that length of time. The man laughed now, a little hoarsely. "Of all the nerve I ever met up with, you take the premium," he remarked, with a vein of sarcasm in his voice. "I guess you are a Brewster, all right, and a chip off the old block in the bargain, but you're off your reckoning if you think I'm going to let that little girl get away from me. Why, I'm just beginning to care for her, and in some distant country she'll make me a fine, dutiful daughter for my old age, and it'll be a sweet morsel for me to roll under my tongue, having a child of Henry Brewster to wait on me." "Then she is my sister. You don't try to deny that, do you?" demanded the boy like a flash. "Why should I, when it adds to my pleasure to see You hate to lose her," answered the other, and then, beginning to scowl savagely, he went on to say, while he waved his deadly weapon to and fro, "However you came over here, you're not going back again in a hurry to betray me to my enemies. I'll just tie you up, neck and crop, and perhaps leave you here, monarch of all you survey, when Polly and myself make up our minds to skip out. Don't move a finger now, boy, or it'll be the worse for you." "Oh, I've got both hands held up, as you see, and as there's all of 20 feet between us, why, I couldn't do anything even if I wanted to. But would money induce you to let me take my sister away with me? You always liked money, Mr. Jasper, and if you saw a chance to make $20,000, perhaps you'd change your mind and go off without Polly. I guess you will, anyway. Hoop, hold him tight, Tom Smith, and here's helping you if you need it." The swamp hunter had finally made his leap, and with such success that he landed on the back of Jasper, bearing the rascal heavily to the ground. Of course, the man struggled furiously, but he was as a pygmy in the group of the stalwart alligator skin hunter, who not only prevented him from using the weapon he held, but forced him to drop the same by bending back his arm until he almost broke it. Thad jumped forward and secured the dangerous weapon, after which he felt that the case was so nearly settled that it would be safe to call the rest of the sheriff's posse up. Accordingly, he let out a loud "coo-ee" that would mean a whole lot to the balance of the scouts, and almost immediately he heard them tearing along fairly wild to reach the spot and see what was happening. And when they did come hurrying up, imagine the delight of Bumpus, Giraffe, and the rest at discovering Thad standing there, holding the hand of the girl and looking happier than they could ever imagine seeing him before, while Alligator Smith was covering the prostrate form of Jasper with his angular body. End of chapter 27.